In this video, we'll be taking a look at inputs in terms of processing with EQ, setting your gains, compressors, and gates. Now the first thing you want to do is create a show file. A show file, I think easiest way to explain it is a box. In that box you have your scenes. If you don't have a show file, you can't save a scene. So a show file is just a box, a container for all these things. The first thing you need to do here is if you press the automation button on the screen access area, we're going to press new, and it will ask me to name my show file. So grab my keyboard here, and we'll actually just call it new show. If there's a file that already exists with that same name, it will probably not let you save. If you check that box, it'll overwrite it. So let's press OK. And it loads the scene, it loads the automation screen. And the first thing I'm going to do right away is I'm going to store a scene. The first scene on there is the global safe scene, which clears everything out. I've already made some patching that should really save before I get too far ahead of myself. So if I press the store button here in the automation area, I can store a scene. Here in the top I can name the scene start. And I will store it to the next available scene. I will leave that checkbox checked, overwrite save parameters, and I'll press OK. So now my patching has been saved. The next thing I want to do is label that input that I patched earlier. So if I go to the inputs outputs area, it will show me all of my inputs on this screen. And microphone 1 is where I have, or input 1, which is currently labeled microphone 1, is where I have my microphone patched to, and I'll just call this one Sure. And I'll give it a different color. Some of these actually end up matching up. I'll just give it a nice red color. The next thing I want to do is save me some work down the line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the first channel. If I press on it, a black box surrounds the name of the channel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enable the stereo and mono mix on the channel. I'm going to go to the EQ and I'm going to enable the EQ, and I'm going to enable the compressor. I'm also going to go to the mix area and I'm going to turn on all of the aux sends and the matrix sends. There's a send contribution level, but you also have to enable the send. When I'm working in a live situation, I prefer not to have to think about whether something's on or off. If the level's all the way down, it might as well be off. And if I need to turn up a monitor in a live situation, I really need to not have to think twice about whether I actually turned it on or off. So I prefer to have all of them off. Clearly, if that doesn't work for you, you don't have to follow this. So here's the matrix or the mix bus area. This is the contributions from the selected channel. And this is a currently selected mix bus. It says matrix 8 and it highlights where matrix 8 is located on which knob. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to press on all of these. Now I'm going to scroll up by 8. So now I'm looking at aux sends 16 up to 9. So those are now going to get turned on. And scroll up by 8 one more time and enable 1 through 8. Aux send 1 through 8. One more detail is I'm going to go to the master section for that channel, and I have a stereo system and a center fill. When I enable the mono mix for this channel, the mono send is 0 or infinity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set that to 0 decibels. Okay. The reason I did that is because if I don't copy and paste this to all the channels now, I'll have to repeat this action every single time I set up a new microphone. These are settings that I'm going to use on all of my channels. It'll save me some time not to think about whether the EQ is on, not to think about whether the compressor is on. The compressor is on now, but the settings, the threshold is all the way up. It's not, the signal is not being compressed at all. So once I have my channel kind of configured like that, what I can do is go to copy, Oh, most important thing is, before you do that copy, what it's going to copy is what you see on the detail area on the left. So if I want to copy all of the settings for that channel, I need to get out of the detail area and look at the overview of the channel, where it shows me all of the information that I just did. So now if I press copy, and I go over to paste, and I press the right mouse button, I can paste to all. Now what that's going to do is it's going to paste all those settings to all channels of similar type. So in this case, that's an input channel. If I press paste to all, it'll paste to all of the other input channels. It won't affect aux returns, and it won't affect aux sends or master outputs or matrices. It's only going to affect like channels. So this will paste the copied section across the whole console, and it's not undoable. Are you sure? Yes, I am. So once I press that, you should see all of the stereo and mono light up. You should see all the EQ lights light up. There it is. Now I have this microphone patched into input 1. So I'm going to select that. We're going to go to the gain trim quick access button. We're going to press that. We should see that show up here on our detail screen. And the first thing I need to do is explain to you the difference between stage box gain and digital trim. What's important is to understand that stage box gain is analog. It's a real analog preamp located inside of the stage I/O, and the digital trim takes effect after that preamp has done its work, and you can add or subtract signal. The other thing is that the stage box gain works in increments of 2.5 decibels on this stage I/O, and the digital trim is a lot more fine, so you can make more minor adjustments with that. Plus, these are Midas preamps. You want to drive these guys to get that Midas sound if you want it. So I need to enable phantom power for this microphone, which is a button located up here. And we're going to go to the stage box, and once I touch that, you should see the representation of what the gain currently is set at, and it's set at 0. I'm going to bring that up as I talk into this microphone. Now I know that this microphone requires a lot of gain before it'll give me a good level, and I'm just going to set that to 40 decibels, and then I'm going to go over to the digital trim, and I'm going to give it just a little bit of trim. Once I have signal coming in from that microphone, what I can do is I'll turn it up to 0 decibels, and we'll see if it's making it through to the stereo outputs. Because I've patched my speakers earlier, I should hear it as I bring this up. Check 1 2, check 1 2. So there we are. We have a signal going all the way through the board, and I'll turn this down. So now I want to take a look at the dynamics processing that's available and the equalizer section. So if we take a look at this parametric EQ detail area, when I press that, I see the overview for my equalizer and a graph over here on top. I can select which band I'm looking at with these arrow keys. I can also select which band I'm looking at if I go over to where my channel is and use one of the quick access buttons. They call it bass, low mid, high mid, and treble. Once I press that, the corresponding section of the EQ will show up on this screen. The three control knobs I have are gain, frequency, and width. I'm just going to head and cut out 400 Hertz, pretty narrow. I can go up to 7,000 kilohertz and boost that just a little bit for more presence. And then the other option you have is on the bass and treble, you have an option for the shape. What you can do is have a shelf, and there's 3 different kinds of shelf. There's this one, and that one. Don't know what they sound like yet. We also have the dynamics area, so if we press this quick access button, we'll be looking at the compressor. And there's 6 different control knobs here. The threshold is the one in the middle here. I can bring my threshold down. Ratio defaults to almost infinity. Take that up to 2.5 for some vocals. There's a presence knob here. What it sounds like is it just adds some high end to me. That's what it sounds like. If you want to work on the gate, you can press this down arrow. And now we're looking at the gate, and the controls here are the same with the threshold. There's also different kinds of modes for the compressor and the gate. The gate has a gate, a transient gate, and a ducker. The compressor has a corrective mode, adaptive, creative, vintage, and shimmer. Haven't heard these too much yet. There's also a graphical, a GUI or a GUI button that says more, and I think it was added in a recent software update. And basically what it does is it colors the sound a little bit more. And the last section I'm going to cover is the mix section. If I press that quick access button, I can look at my mixes and what my contributions are. So if I go to aux 1 and bring up the level, I can see that my contribution to aux 1 is there. So if you remember, I patched auxiliary 1 to a monitor and auxiliary 2 to an effects unit. So I'm going to go ahead and bring those up to 0 decibels, and we'll look at that in the future video. Another thing that we would want to do is if we have a input from a CD player or from an auxiliary, you want to link those channels as a stereo pair. So I'm going to go back into the patching screen, and I'm going to patch a 2.5mm jack that I have plugged into the back of my console. I have that going into a pair of TRS connections. So I'm going to select both of those, and I will patch those into input 7 and 8. Now I'm going to go into my input screen, and I'm going to label input 7 and 8. Aux left, aux right, and I'll color those blue. Now I'm going to go over here and select the left side of this future stereo pair. I'm going to go into the input screen, and I'll see this is a graphical user interface button only, and it says link. Once I press that, it will link the two channels together. We also have some link options where I can choose whether the mutes are linked together. So if I mute one of the channels, the other channel gets muted as well. Whether the faders follow each other, whether the dynamics are identical, whether the EQ is identical. So all those options are there. And then one other option that's good to know is the pan link mode and independent pan link mode. Each of those channels can have a completely independent pan from the other. There's also a left-right mirror option, which if you select the left channel and you pan it to the left, the right channel will pan to the right automatically. And if you're using surround options that are available in this console, you'll have to look at front and back mirroring and mirroring front, back, left, and right if you're using surround. I'm going to go ahead and choose left-right mirror, and I'm going to go over to this left input and I'm going to pan it to the left. Probably going to be a hard time seeing, but there's a strip along the top that shows me what my pan is currently set to. As I pan the left channel to the left, the right channel automatically pans to the right. And I'm going to bring those faders up to unity, and I'll mute them for now since I don't have anything plugged in. Looks like I should have linked the mute, so I'm going to go back and do that. I'm going to link the mutes and the solo. So now when I press one mute, the other mute mutes as well. So that's it. Here we've gone over the EQ dynamics processing for an input, taking a look at the mix bus contribution from that channel. And we've named that channel and assigned a color to it.